listenable and playable wherever you get your music, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
whatever.
That's probably how I would say it.
Whatever each person's style is too, right? Because there's lots of. I think there's like 3 different kinds of producers, really, in terms of like. There are producers like you'd mentioned, Rick Rubin earlier, who they're like, I feel like they're like the spirit guide of the song realm. They like they're full of nurture and they really know music and they do know production, but they may not be as technical. They can be, but like their focus is artist focused and song development focused. Right. Then I feel like there's another producer who they're closest to an engineer. Maybe they are an engineer as well. And that's not to say they don't care about the artist's development or whatever, but they're very focused on that, and they come from that background. And then I think there are people that are a little bit of a hybrid of both, and they may also bring to the table kind of like an organization side of it. I think I'm that middle one. I'm like a little bit of both. I'd like to be more of the engineer, but because I'm not in a studio every day of my own with all the bells and whistles, it's harder to be that. But I think those 3, there's and the one in the middle.
It's interesting you put it that way, because I've thought about that exact same thing, but I think of it as like there's 2 extremes on the continuum, right? There's like on one end is the Rick Rubin, on the other hand is like, the engineer gal, and like in the middle, there's a continuum of different kinds of producers, and I definitely find myself also smack in the middle somewhere.
Well, and I also it's like songwriting. Like, let's not forget, like there are people who are songwriters and top liners, and so again, I think it's like we're using a giant paint roller, and it's like anybody that's making music in any capacity is just producer roller. Just gets steamrolled over top of their job. And it's like, wait, hang on. These are all different paintbrushes. These are all different jobs. Like, if you're a songwriter, because you're a modern songwriter, you are using elements of production to create your songs, because you're not sitting at a grand piano. You're sitting there in front of a DAW with all these palettes of sounds, and you're blending them and creating them. So it's an element of production to be used in the modern songwriting process, right? So somebody that's like, I will write a song for you and you will come sing on it. Well, they're a songwriter and you're a songwriting team, and maybe the person that's coming to sing is a top liner and they special. So now you have a songwriting team who are doing elements of production, and they're self-producing artists or a self-producing songwriting team. Maybe that's too many words for people, so they just all put the same hat on, but it gets very hard to communicate. Nobody knows what anybody's job is anymore. And you're like, I'm a producer, I can help you. Well, I'm also a producer. Okay, cool. Nobody needs anyone. What the fact is,
we're all equally inept.
But we all need each other. I think that's really what it is. I'm not good at top lining, so I'd love to find top liners. If I'm writing my own stuff, I got to go find a top liner.
So you're for figuring out what exactly you do best and kind of selling that and staying in your lane and collaborating with other people and making the best possible product, as we kind of talked about earlier.
Yeah, I guess
that's kind of your MO.
Yeah, I guess that at some level, that's you gotta be able to say what your calling card is. Otherwise, it just gets sticky and people get really like confused. It becomes a really awkward cha-cha.
I think this is a super important conversation, and I'm excited to share this episode. And so I thank you for sharing that. I think that's something we all need to think about and kind of figure out exactly what we're doing, and so that we can kind of like you said, collaborate as best as possible, and to pitch yourself as well as possible, and just do the best possible work and make the best possible product for the artists we work with. Yeah, totally. As I bring this conversation to a close, I want to kind of get into slightly more general questions that I try to ask everybody on the show. Just talking about like creativity and energies and routines or whatever it is. We all kind of have days where we're hyped to get in the studio, and there's days where we're a little bit less hyped to do our work. How do you stay energized, motivated, and in the zone, so to speak?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm really, 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 really structured. And I know that's like not rock and roll, but I have certain times a day that I do certain things. So I will go through periods where if I'm writing new material, I like to write in the morning because it's fresh and quiet and my ears are rested. So they're going to be open to new sounds. And on days when I don't feel motivated to write, then I try to use that same time so that the block doesn't get lost. Like that block is allocated and it shouldn't move. So I will use it for housekeeping, like updating plugins or updating software, or maybe building a little template of something. Maybe just if I can't write, I can at least start designing some of the sounds, and maybe that will inspire me. But keeping your mind in the practice, because I read something somewhere once that you can train your brain to be good at certain tasks at certain times of day. And I don't know where I read that, but it really influenced how I think about my day. I noticed that my energy drops around 2 or 3 in the afternoon and I'm useless. So I always plan for 2 or 3 in the afternoon to be physical time, standing up, moving, walking. You know, that's the time to run errands, move about, sweep the floor, because the higher functioning abilities for whatever reason for myself are gone. So I'm not going to try to force myself to write at 3 because I know for a fact that it's going to be futile. Futile, not futile, like futile.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not like the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Right. I got you.
I got the California D in there, futile, or T. But yeah, and this may just be unique to myself, but I can't function writing at night very well because I get overstimulated, and then I can't sleep. But I do a lot of brainstorming at night because I wish I was writing all the time. I don't find it hard to be motivated, honestly, because I'm really like obsessed with music, and I get like separation anxiety when I have to be away from my equipment for very long, or like even if I don't think I can go a whole day without listening to music. It's really hard for me. But I think block structuring your day and being aware of like what times of day you have low energy and kind of planning for that, and then kind of sticking to it. Because with writing, if it's not consistent, and I get this fear all the time, if I don't write, like maybe life throws a wrench in my grand discipline, which it often does, then I miss like a week or a month of writing anything at all. And then there's a fear, this massive fear that I can't do it because I haven't done it in a month. And it becomes terrifying to approach, like it's like a wild animal that I've got to go up with like a giant net, that I'm not going to catch that creativity. So I think the easiest way to avoid that is to just always do it once a day, every day, if you can, because then it will never not be, like a well-oiled machine. It's like working out. It's like anything that you do, you've got to just always be doing it otherwise. So that's how I try to kind of stay on top of it. But it is, I think personally, the tech side is the hardest to stay on top of, because it's like there's new everything every day. There's a new update. There's new, with new features that you're supposed to know, new keyboard shortcuts, new microphones that are doing mind-blowing things, like the microphone. I'm trying to think of the name of the company. I wish I could remember them because they're great, but it looks like
Slate, the Sphere.
No, it looks like a periscope. I think it is called the periscope, right? And it's got built-in distortion in there. I mean, there's just there's so much to explore. And so that can be almost daunting for me personally, because I want to know all of it. And I sometimes feel like I'm expected to know all of it. So
yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of like the reason why I'm on social media, besides like promoting, the work I do or whatever, is to try to be on top of what's going on in the industry. Because I feel like when I'm on Instagram, I'm on the pulse, even though I feel sometimes like I am wasting time, but I'm also kind of learning what's going on. And so it's like a trade-off, right? Like, do you want to learn or do you want to work? And like, you got to do a little bit of both. You know?
Yeah. And that's a really valid point, is setting aside time for learning too, because that's usually what I'll do during lunchtime is I will watch something like I did, both the Hans Zimmer and the Danny Elfman master classes, like during the pandemic. That was my lunch break, is like, now it's time to be inspired by masters and learn and hear and and then I would go back to work, like full of, uh, learning. But there's also like, you got to practice stuff too, right? Like I know my musicianship is lacking some days. I'm like, I'm not practicing guitar enough. I'm not practicing piano enough. I'm not, I have other instruments to learn like mandolin and stuff. So I think if you make a list for yourself of your key skills that you need to improve and that you need to just maintain, it really is a balance of maintaining and improving everything.
I did an interview with Damian Taylor, who's like a 7-time Grammy nominated producer, mixer, worked with Bjork and stuff, and it was an amazing conversation. And he was saying how he has like a morning practice. Like every morning he wakes up, and like the first thing he does is like, maybe, I don't remember exactly, maybe like 50 minutes of like just pure creativity, just making stuff, and then he'll break, and then whatever, he'll come back to his day later on. But like because he starts his day like every day with like that kind of creative practice, it just sets up every single day for success. And he said like you should try, like, other than like going to the bathroom, you should just go straight to your computer first thing in the morning and just like just see what happens if you start doing that. Not so possible for me with a 3.5-year-old, but like every situation has their own thing. But it's a super cool idea of just like, because if you've done something creative, you've already won the day, was what he was saying.
Yes.
And that's so true. It's like, I think a lot of times, like, I mean, as a New Yorker, right? We know, like, we just try to stay busy to feel productive. Like, if I'm busy, then I had a productive day. That's something that feels very true for me, which is like obviously bullshit, right? But like, if you could say like, I've done the one thing that I set out to do today, then you feel like you've accomplished it and you're good, and then you don't feel like you have to like do random shit to feel like you accomplished something today. So anyway, so that's like another good reason to maybe do that.
I'm a paper notebook person, so I have my whole week laid out. On Sunday night I go and I fill in the whole week, so I can see where there's pockets of time for life to be spontaneous, because I know it will throw things at me, but I kind of have an idea of where I need to be by the end of the week. And sometimes tasks don't always get completed on the day that I meant for them to, but I will move them down, not necessarily to the next day, because that can freak you out. So I'll move it to a day that looks lighter. And then I think about in terms of what kind of light that is. Like, oh, that day is very heavy on sitting at my desk, and I'm probably not going to have the headspace or the spoons for that task. So I'll move it to this day, because this day is very light in that type of work, So, and I lay out each week, Sunday night before I go to bed, so that I'm not thinking all night of what the week is going to bring, because I know it's all laid out and I can forget about it.
Right.
Yeah.
You're. I think you're similar to me, is of like the fear of chaos.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm trying to embrace more of, in therapy now and stuff. It's like just trying to figure out like, okay, why does everything have to be so in order? Like, let's embrace a bit more chaos. It's hard.
Maybe that's the producer type, maybe that's like, because we're like herding all the cats, So
maybe there's something about that. Totally. Like artists that are often so free and don't even think about these things, and producers like, okay, but like what's actually happening here? You know? So maybe it's part of the job description, and, the psychoanalysis of the job description.
The temperament, totally.
The temperament, right? Exactly. Awesome. And so well, this has been an amazing conversation, and really, really love getting to chat with you. I really learned a lot.
Thank you.
I always close the show out with this question, and I'm thinking that maybe it's getting old and maybe I need to rephrase it. So I'll ask the question and then I'll try out my rephrasing of it.
Okay.
And then, so the question is, looking back on your journey, what would you tell your earlier self and be like, yo, Kallie, keep at that. It's going to get you where you need to go. Or maybe it's the other way around. Like, Kallie, don't do that. It's holding you back. What would be the one thing, you'd want to impart on your earlier self? Maybe it could be rephrased as like, what would you tell, new people starting off, on their journey? That was something that you learned along the way that you'd want to impart on them. So it could be either way, whichever way you feel like answering it.
Okay, gosh. Okay. What would I tell people starting out? It's kind of been a theme of what we've talked a lot about today, which is to figure out what you're most good at, but know what you most enjoy, because you can be good at things you don't enjoy, and you can be bad at things you do enjoy. And I think music can be very overwhelming because there's so many facets to it, and people will tell you this is where the money is, or this is the trend, or this is where the work is. And if you know what matters to you, like some people I know are very